I'm normally somewhat of a cautious Kevin. You won't find me bungee jumping or throwing myself out of a plane for fun. And yet, just a couple of months back, I did something that, to me, is just as scary. I cancelled my subscription to Adobe Premiere Pro and started editing all my projects in DaVinci Resolve 17 without ever having opened up that program once in my life before. If you're someone who's used to editing in one program for many years, you'll understand how scary that could be. But what made me make this reckless decision? And more importantly, what discoveries did I make along the way? Well, let me tell you. Oi, what's happening? My name's Chris, aka Snackophagus. Like, subscribe, blah blah blah. So the reason I made this leap into the unknown is really all down to finance. I was paying Adobe over £600 a year for Premiere Pro, After Effects, and a load of other applications bundled in that I couldn't care less about. I mean, what even is Adobe Aero? And two, thanks to owning a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, I had a code for DaVinci Resolve Studio full version just sitting there collecting dust. £600 saved is £600 earned. Kind of. Which means I was willing to take the risk that Resolve wouldn't be up to the task, or that I'd be too dumb to figure out the program and I'd have to run back to Adobe with my tail between my legs, begging for them to take my money off me. Which I'm sure they'd happily do, it's not as if I'm banned from it or anything. Right, I'm going to head over to the computer and show you my findings. The very first thing that I noticed when I opened up DaVinci Resolve 17, and obviously I've done a few projects in it now, you can see them here, but you make a new project, you give it a title, you create it, and then there's no screen to put in your settings. Obviously I'm so used to a Premiere that you get the dialog box that opens up where you can set your frame rate, your size, whether you're going to shoot in 4K, HD, whatever, but you don't get one in this. So straight away I was kind of confused, like, oh, well, what are the settings here? What have I actually opened here? So you can do them if you go up to project settings, file, project settings. That's where you get the information there. You can, as you say, pick if you want to be HD, PAL, whatever. I always change it to 25 frames a second. So yeah, no problem there. And just like Premiere, if you actually just import media into the timeline, drag it onto the timeline, then it will ask you if you want to change the settings to match that media that you've dragged in. So you don't need to set anything up like that, but it was just a bit confusing to begin with. I was kind of like, oh well, where is everything? So that was a little bit strange. Not a big problem though. I've got to say that the next thing that really struck me was the UI design of this program. I really like it. I think it's a very nice, clean, simple design they've gone for. It's obviously slightly influenced by Final Cut and the things that Apple are doing over there with that program, but it looks fresh, it looks new, it looks clean, it's simple. I know Adobe Premiere Pro had a kind of design upgrade a couple of years back. They tried to make it a little fresher, a little more modern, but it still's got that kind of 1995 kind of Avid Media Composer look to it, which isn't bad. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just think that this design is much nicer. I like the colours, the layout, the fonts used in it. As a former graphic designer, I kind of appreciate those things, probably a little more than maybe other people will. Most people probably just want something that works and they're happy with this. But for me, I think they've done a fantastic job on the design of this program. It just makes it more interesting, more of a pleasure to use. Little things like that just show that they're really making an effort and paying attention to those little details. Unlike other editing programs, DaVinci Resolve seems to be 4 or 5 different programs all bundled up together. Premiere, you've got Premiere Pro obviously, and then you can open up the After Effects, or you can go into Audition, I think it's called, for your sound design. But they're separate programs that you have to dip in and out of, fire them up again, which can be a bit annoying, whereas DaVinci Resolve has gone for an all combined approach. So along the bottom here you've got the different tabs. First one's media. I don't spend a lot of time in here, but it's simply an area where you can store and organize your media that you're going to be using in the project. Then you've got cut, and this is the first of what I'd say is kind of one of the programs that's combined in together. This is a bit like a kind of stripped down, simpler version of the whole program. It's a bit like iMovie or maybe Adobe Rush, much simpler. They've taken out a lot of the kind of complicated features that maybe new editors would get a bit kind of thrown by. So they've stripped it back, made it simpler, and I think this is a really good place to start if you are new to editing. You can come here, you can learn the basics, not get overwhelmed with all the kind of complicated ideas that there are in editing, keep it simple, and then these transferable skills that you learn here can transfer over into the next tab, which is the Edit tab, and you take those skills with you. You're not going to have to relearn things as if you were coming from an outside program. So for example, if you were in iMovie or something, you'll learn your edits there, and then you'll come into a new program and you'll have to relearn those skills. So the next tab is the Edit, and this really is just kind of the full-blown editing software equivalent to Final Cut, Premiere Pro, or Avid Media Composer. Is that what they call it these days? I think so. This is the full program, and it's a real pleasure to use. It's not particularly different to Premiere Pro or anything. As I said before, the design's a little nicer. So far, you've seemed to be able to do everything that you can do in Premiere Pro or in Final Cut Pro. There's nothing in here that seems basic or naive in any way. They've done a really good job with that. So far, that's okay. Haven't encountered any major problems. Then you've got Fusion, which is kind of the equivalent of Adobe After Effects. It's their motion graphics software. You can obviously do motion graphics, you can do compositing, you can do kind of some visual effects. I guess it all depends how competent you are in this type of program. It uses nodes rather than layer-based After Effects. I'm not a master of nodes. I haven't really done much with them. I've used them in Blender. They're a little complicated, or they can get a little complicated. To begin with, they're actually quite simple. They're not that different from layers, but you can go a bit mad with them. So that's something that I'm still learning. I haven't really done much in Fusion, mainly because it's got Fusion templates, but I'll come into them in a bit. You've also got Color then down the bottom, and this is the full color grading software, the exact software that they use on many Hollywood movies. You name it, it's been color graded in here. That's fantastic. I mean, you've got no excuse now not to make a movie that looks as good as Avengers Endgame or Tenet or whatever your favorite movie is. So yeah, that's it. You better get good at this. No excuses. This is the real deal. And then you've got Fairlight. Fairlight is Blackmagic or DaVinci Resolve's version of Audition on the Adobe software. This is the sound mixing. So come in here, use your equalizers and your compressors and your DSs and all that type of stuff to edit your sound. Again, I haven't spent a great deal of time in here, still learning all this stuff. I wasn't a master on it in the Adobe suite anyway, so for me this is still a learning curve. By no means am I a master of the sound part of movie making. Something we should all get better at though, because it really is so important. It's here, I'll do my best to learn it, and if I find anything else, I'll definitely report it back. And then finally, you've got Deliver. Obviously, this is where everything comes together. You can set your settings, your output settings, and deliver the final project, final movie, whatever it is you're making, final documentary. Yeah, this is where it's all done. Obviously, you've got your defaults up on the top here: YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter even, ProRes Master, and then you can customize it all until your heart's content as well. One thing I did notice is it does a really good job of rendering these out. I've not done any time comparisons against Premiere Pro, but just kind of my lived experience, as we say these days, it seemed to be faster, seemed to be quicker at rendering these out, which was nice. We all remember the days when rendering something out took hours and hours and hours, if not days. I really like the customability of Resolve. I like the way that you can click these little side bits and you can change the layout. You can give yourself more real estate, less real estate, and I really like the addition of this inspector tool up here. I think in Final Cut they have a similar thing, an inspector tool, where this gives you all the information about the clip that you're currently on. You can zoom, you can position, you can rotate, you can speed up the footage, you can stabilize it, rather than having to right click like in Premiere Pro and find these functions and make changes and stuff. You can actually, everything's just here. It's just so much more convenient, it's so handy. And then you've got it for everything. You've got the audio there, and then if you've got effects or transitions, all the information is just in that dialog box there. It's so useful, it's so handy. I don't know where it's been before, you know, why Premiere Pro doesn't have a similar thing. I mean, maybe they do and it's just hidden from me, but on this, brilliant. Yeah, I just love it. And then there's a couple of others. You've got mixer, so you can have the mixer for the audio channels, and then the metadata, and if you set it up you can have them all on at the same time. Yeah, just so useful, just that little addition. I think it's really well thought out. I also really like the transitions that are in DaVinci Resolve. I think they're just a bit fresher, a bit cleaner, a bit more modern than the ones that are in Premiere Pro, particularly the Fusion ones, which you get in the full studio version of the software. They're just more modern, and if you look at them here, you can view of them, you don't have to render them out. It makes life much easier when you can just do things like that. You don't have to go and buy After Effects templates, or obviously in this case Fusion templates, or you don't have to spend hours making them yourself. If they're simpler, better, cleaner, fresher, more modern, then you can use the built-in ones. Right, some things that I've discovered that I don't like, little kind of glitches and kind of strange design choices. Number one, playback button up here. You can play with it, that's fine, sends the video forward, but it's not also stop, it's not also pause. In every other software I've ever used, it's also the pause button there. Now, obviously it's not too much of a problem, you've still got your shortcuts on your keyboard. You can use the J, K and L to go backwards, forwards and stop the footage. But there are times when I use that button up there, I press it, and then I'm expecting to stop it where I want it to stop, but instead nothing happens. I mean, the button animates as if it's meant to be doing something. But another strange little glitch that I've found, doesn't happen all the time this, but it has happened occasionally to me, is you're in your font editor or your text editor, you change the font, you want it to go a different font family, a different weight, and then you change the size, and it will spring back to the original font family. It will go back to being, if you were in bold, it will go back to bold, or if you were in italic or whatever, it will spring back to italic. It doesn't do it all the time, it's not doing it now, I can't recreate it at the moment, but it has done it to me on the past. Again, I'm sure it's not a feature, it's just a little bug or a glitch or something, but it's strange that it does it, and I immediately noticed it. So something there that could maybe be taken care of in future updates. Another thing that doesn't happen all the time, but I did manage to get a screenshot of it last time it happened to me, is the waveform in the audio track disappearing. Now, I'm sure this is just a glitch, I can't imagine this is a feature that anybody wanted, but it is a little bit annoying, particularly as I do a lot of editing or a lot of editing with people's voices. I use that track to skim through and see when people start talking. Also with music, things like that, editing to the beat. So to have it disappear is a little bit strange. Now, it's not too hard to get it back, you just kind of drag the timeline off the screen and back on the screen and it will return. And lastly, probably the most annoying kind of glitch, if it is a glitch, or maybe it's just I'm being stupid, but I cannot figure out how to get out of full screen mode. I enlarged the work area, or I maximized the screen space, and that's it, I'm stuck in full screen mode. There's no, if I go up here and float over the top like on other programs, there's nowhere to get those little dots, the green dot, the red dot, the orange dot, to resize the workspace. They've gone. The only way I can get in and out is function 11, and that will bring me back to my desktop, but there's no way of coming out of it and just being able to resize the screen. I'm probably being stupid. If you know how to do that, let me know in the comments. I'd really appreciate it, because I do find it a little bit annoying. Apart from a few minor teething problems, I've been incredibly impressed with DaVinci Resolve 17. I'm definitely going to stick with it for the time being. I'll probably make a catch-up video sometime in the future if I'm still using it, or I'll have to make an apology video to Adobe and tell you how much I missed Premiere Pro. If you're just starting out editing, I have absolutely no problem recommending DaVinci Resolve. In fact, why would you look at anything else? It's completely free, it's got all the features that you could ever need, and if you're doing something just like YouTube or home videos, then it's out of this world. I started editing years ago between 2 VCRs, and the idea of having something like this, mind-blowing. If you're used to using some sort of other editing program, then I'd still recommend you check out DaVinci Resolve. I mean, it's completely free. What have you got to lose? download it, have a play with it, see what you think, and maybe you can save yourself 600 quid a year as well. Remember, if you're buying any Blackmagic camera, then a full studio version of this software is available with that for free. So if you're thinking about getting a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K, let me point you towards this video here. If not, thanks for sticking with me, I really do appreciate it. Cheers.